So we were discussing power and politics. And the point that I am making as the first initial start is that both these aspects, power as well as politics, is actually situated in relational contexts. So there is no understanding of power and there is no understanding of politics when we are actually looking at human beings and individuals in isolation. We actually look at the dynamics of human relationships and within them look at the idea of power and politics. Power and politics are two words which are also very, very intrinsically related. So we can't really understand or segregate politics if there isn't a deep, good, complete understanding of power and its dynamics. I'm sure all of you have enough understanding of the kinds of power. And one of you, if you would like to tell me what kinds of power that you might have heard, read in text, and probably also researched on. Is there anyone who would like to sort of tell us about the various kinds of power?
Yeah, ma'am, there is a fear power, there is a mayorship power, there is a referent power, there is a position power, different power is position power.
Political power,
knowledge
also,
power, or expertise power.
Right, Dr. Ghosh. Yeah, and we do understand that as research has progressed in the area of power, there has also been various kinds of power that has constantly been added to our already long list of kinds of power that have sort of been and studied. The first kind of structure, theoretical understanding, was provided by Francis and Raven. Now, Francis and Raven actually, and amongst these two people, Francis gave us 5 kinds of important power that he studied. And he said that these are the 5 kinds that existed. And Raven added the 6th kind to it. And now as we go along, we add the understanding of power and kinds of power according to how human interaction changed. So just before we go into an explanation of the things, there are 2 very important things for us to understand. One, power is based on a concept and understanding of human interaction and human dynamics, right? Obviously, the second one follows from the that if it is something that is based on and established by human interaction, then of course what will happen is that the understanding of power in itself is dynamic. That means that the idea of power, the concept of power, the impact of power, the internalization of power, the negotiation of power, all of this is something that will constantly keep changing, constantly keep getting negotiated and renegotiated. So power is dynamic. The power situated inside the structure where it is actually played out is also dynamic. So now we can imagine that we have a constantly moving wheel within which we have another constantly moving wheel. So it is the interaction of these 2 very important components that make the idea of power alive, right? So the 5 basic kinds of power that were given and the first go by Francis were, number 1. Now we can go at it. Dr. Ghosh, would you like to tell us again? Okay, let me go. The first is legitimate power, power that we have due to certain positions that we occupy in an organization, in the society, in the family, by terms of getting elected, by actually doing something that legitimizes me of having the power. The second is coercive power, power that is bestowed upon me because I can punish, because I can take away something from you, that you so much want or desire, right? So I have coercive power. The third is expert power, which means that I have power because I have knowledge. I have power because I have amassed a certain kind of understanding into something that most people may not have. So teachers have that kind of power in society because we have learned something that others want to learn, or sometimes that others are forced to learn, but that is what is called expert power. Then is referent power, the kind of power that celebrities enjoy, that is referent power. Then is the fifth is the reward power, the fact that I can bestow, I have something that I can give you in terms of you feeling rewarded. So for example, if I can give you money, that is reward power. The sixth power that got added was what was called informational power. Now, this is something, the sixth is both very interesting and also a combination of some powers that we've already spoken about. This is informational power, the power to give or withhold information. And this is particularly important in the context that we are going to talk about today. So, in an organization, if someone has the power to provide you information that you need or withhold information that might be useful and also release it at a time which is very opportune, is someone who is then carrying a certain kind of power which may not directly come from either position or authority, right? So power is also something which moves from an individual to other individuals to another person throughout a span of time, and is therefore essentially in itself as well quite dynamic, right? Can anyone help me with a good example of power changing hands while the structure of the organization remains the same? So I continue to be, for example, the head of an organization, the CEO, the principal, the head of my department, but momentarily someone else becomes more powerful, and that can happen, does happen, and will happen, right? Is there anyone with a good example to this? Can we help each other understand this kind of dynamism of power a little better?
Hello.
Hanji, Himlata ji.
Ma'am, I don't know whether it is the right example, but you can help me out. Like I'm heading the Department of Management Studies here. And so there are lot many portfolios which I have to look after. So the academic part, like we being an autonomous institute, we have to design our own curriculum. We have to take feedback from industry and all. So like what I've done, I've put up a faculty as academic coordinator. She does everything in the syllabus design and which courses to float, what all things to be there, how they should be assessed. She is the decision maker. She informs me, but she discusses and then she decides like this is best for the students and this is what we should do. So I have given her the full authority and she can collect from other faculties in the department. So that way the accountability and responsibility and authority is being given to her. So I don't know whether it fits in the real context or
So
not.
this actually, it's a partially all right example where you have decided to partake a little bit of your power, divest it in somebody else, give the person that power to also share your roles and responsibilities so that this becomes slightly decentralized.
Yeah.
Ma'am,
Right?
in case of hello,
Hanji, I can hear you but can't see you, so don't know who's speaking.
ma'am, good afternoon. My name is Lalit Pant, and you're asking about the example, na? So
Yeah,
can we
Hanji.
can we example a quote? Can we take the delegation of authority as an example of that? When the deputy dean has been delegated the power of your full-fledged dean, Can we take this as an example of it?
Absolutely. So actually what each one of you, both you and Hemlata ji, are telling me is actually when power is given, right? When a post is given, when a portfolio is shared, when a work is sort of delegated to someone. So someone also wrote on the chat box saying that with promotions, the structure of power sort of changes. And this already is interesting, but all of you are telling me that when we are placed on a particular chair, when we are given a particular responsibility, I want to extend this idea a little bit. I'm saying that power sometimes changes without being given. Do you understand how interesting now it becomes? I'm not giving anyone the power. I'm not promoting anyone. I'm not placing anyone in the dean, deputy dean's chair. I am doing nothing. I am holding on to all the power. But suddenly, someone else in the organization, for a brief period of time, becomes powerful. Yeah, Dr. Batra, it's again, he has been given that responsibility and therefore he has the power. I'm actually making you think a little bit, and because psychologists should do that.
Yeah, like
Ma'am,
if
can we
ma'am,
say
there's a book, Leader Without a Title. Like you don't require to be on a post to have exercise your leadership. Somebody can maybe, like I'm heading, but the control can be taken by somebody else and all people are listening to what he wants to put forth.
Fantastic. We are getting there. Yay.
so,
We are
ma'am,
absolutely getting there.
Ma'am, somewhere
Ma'am,
you
if
are
I
talking
can
about
add,
the puppet power
Someone is
leadership,
trying
right?
to say, one second. Let's go one by one. Someone was just trying to say something
ma'am,
earlier.
Anupama this side.
Yeah,
Anupama this
Anupama,
side.
tell me.
Ma'am, sometimes what happens is like because the leaders, like somebody just said that you don't have a designated role, but then sometimes in the organization we take up leaders role, right? We takes initiative. So that means what
Correct.
happens is, although we do not have a designated powers, but because of our actions, automatically people around us starts believing in us, and indirectly, that power in us, basically decisions are taken by us, inputs are given by us, but it's just that it's like we are saying it, but the ideas are ours, but it is somebody, the designated person who's communicating it. So can we call that
Well,
as
that's a very, very interesting example. And we are now understanding how sometimes power actually seeps in, it makes inroads into, and these are essential things that we are going to learn from experience, from something which is from away from textbooks essentially, but makes an organization very, very dynamic and makes the experience of the individuals in the organization very, very different, right? So you have been told that she is the
ma'am,
leader,
I would also
she
like
is
to
the
add,
person. Please go ahead.
ma'am,
Please
I would also like
identify
to add,
yourself.
ma'am, Anupama this side. I
Anupama.
would also like to give it like to better explain it. It's like we hear a lot about office politics, right? So
Yes,
many times we get to hear that, okay, he is the boss, but actually there is somebody else behind who is working over it. I think this is what
correct.
I wanted to quote.
Wonderful, wonderful. We'll also get to that. Politics is our second part. And to get to politics, we have to understand that power plays a role. Thank you, Anupama.
Then can it be Mr. Amit Shah taking major role?
Yeah. Like everybody says, right? It's Amit Shah's strategies. Narendra Modi is the face, but it's Amit Shah. So, like you said, somebody who doesn't have the power. So it's like somebody else who has the power, but the exercise is being done by somebody else.
Fantastic. All very good examples. We are now slowly and gradually getting to understand that how much ever we might read about power, how much ever we read, understand the theory of power, when power actually comes and starts playing in field, it actually translates into something which is very alive, very dynamic, very potent, and of course, something that will very quickly change hands depending on who at that particular point has what kind of role that he or she is being able to play, right? Sometimes the most apparently powerless person in an organization or in a group amasses a lot of power due to the right place, right time, right? The zeitgeist, as we call it, that sometimes when people are actually trying to understand how everything is working, there comes a moment, there comes a wave, there comes a sort of span where this one person who apparently did not, sometimes it's the peon in a large office who is now holding some very, very important information, could actually momentarily amass a lot of power. Maybe everyone just wants to know that what just happened, who just came, right? When there has been a breach of security in the server, then the person who is the IT in charge becomes a very, very powerful person just at that time, right? So we do understand that power is something that very quickly also changes, very quickly also goes from one person's hand into another, and is also something that may not necessarily always stay stagnated with the designated leader. Of course, we see it all the time in our political organizations. We see how organizations are run. We see how countries are actually run. Power is going to fly from one person to another. In no time, actually, do a full circle sometimes and come back, right? So the person does not cease to be the leader, but power can go from person A to person B to person C, and sometimes J and L and P as well,
Ma'am,
right?
there's
Yeah.
yeah. Good afternoon, Professor. I just want to understand, since last 2 days I'm being part of the deliberations, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I have understood until now is that organization behavior that we perceive and we understand has always, and I mean, I just want to understand that it's always I mean, aren't there any other behavioral dimensions that we can actually, I mean, we can look at? Because most of the, professors and experts are talking about organizational behavior with the lens of power. That's a very dominating factor. Do we have other traits as well that, can define strategies? So, for example, somebody mentioned power and value. Now, again, power is taking the center stage. I just want to understand that, first of all, why, and apart from power and value, ma'am, what are the other traits that define behavior and influence strategy in, post COVID, or probably let's say after COVID now? So, what are the new dimensions, ma'am? This is one of my query. If you could please address it during the session, ma'am. Thank you.
Is this Dr. Devika who asked the question?
Yes, Professor.
Thank you, Dr. Devika. Very, very interesting question. Well, I can tell you two very immediate important things about your question. One is that why do we look at it from the perspective or from the centrality of power? In fact, it is not just organization behavior. It is a lot of human behavior also that we look at from the purview on the context of power. We are going to deflect because of your question a little bit, but I want to deflect because I promise this to be interactive, so you should get your questions in, and you should get the speaker to get deflected a little bit. So human interactions, actually, there, if we actually go into even the most private relationships and even the most subtle understandings of human behavior, we do see and observe that power is actually quite at the center of human behavior, and power actually determines a lot of human interaction as well. There will be very, very few examples of relationships which have no power dynamic at all. Right? Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Great. So we will have very few
Ma'am,
relationships, even in our friendships.
there's a network.
Even in our friendships, even in family, even in familial relationships, we see that power does play out. So, if we are going to actually try and escape the idea of power, we are, I don't think, doing justice to understanding human interaction. So, human interaction is something that is quite replete with understanding the dynamics of power within it. Right. In fact, when Freud started talking about group dynamics, right, when there was an understanding of human behavior which was intrapsychic, and the moment human beings start interacting with other human beings in organized or unorganized groups, right, in families or outside, there will be a partaking and interaction of power, right? I will give you some power of my own. I want you to have that power. I think I really respect you. Now, without you trying to command any authority over me, you already have power because I respect you. So, what you do or don't do, what you say and what you opine will all impact me because I choose to give you that power, right? The same is the case of other emotions such as love. When I love someone, I give that person the power to impact me. And this is not in the structure, and this is not even in the context of organizations. This is an extremely private encounter of power, but power exists in human relationships, and we cannot wish it away. We cannot actually build a narrative of human interaction without tripping over. And because we are going to trip over power, we might as well take it up and understand it, right? And actually, what interestingly, because you also bring up pandemic and COVID, etc., power has also sort of become something now which will have to be added in many, many different dimensions as well. It is no longer now just politics and power that is played in the confines of, for example, the office. I have now invited those confines to actually impact human interaction at a much larger play area. The surface area now has become much large. The interaction has now become much more mediated, which means that while maybe if I were in an actual lecture setting right now, where I could see all of you at SRCC, I would probably also be able to see a lot of you nodding your heads in disagreement that, oh no, we're not understanding what you're saying, or we disagree to what you're saying. Right now, I'm not able to see that. You see how that has changed the context of how much power you and I have right now, despite the fact that we are still in a very large FDP. You see how this has completely changed. And also how I choose to be present or not present in certain interactions. Right? That in itself has also changed. I hope I'm answering your questions partially. And for everyone else, I hope I'm also able to navigate the narrative into the narrative now becoming much larger for us. So, power is not, as we have classically always understood, power is not always something which is the only paradigm through which we look at things, but it is definitely omnipresent. It is always there, whether we engage with it or not. Yeah, Devika, you want to say something and then I'll continue.
No, it was very beautifully explained, ma'am. And I think thanks to you, I've got another research idea from this discussion that we just had. That the power in in organizational behavior post COVID. What are the ways it's going to manifest itself? So, like you said, which has changed considerably. So this is something I was writing down what you were saying. Thank you
No,
so much,
wonderful.
Professor. Thank you.
I
It was
think
wonderful.
I do imagine that a lot of you should actually start looking at how, so we are working in two kinds of organizational spaces as we talk, right? One is the fact that we teach about organizations. We teach about how organizational dynamics operate and work, and we read and we study that as teachers. The other kind of organization is the organization that we participate in, the colleges, the institutions, etc. How has our power as teachers become actually very different? How it has changed? I continue to be a teacher, I continue to give lectures, I continue to teach my students, take them through, but our power now has become very, very, very mediated. It is over the media. It is how my student chooses to interact with me. It is how they also choose to participate or not participate in my class, how they make me feel after a particular class, right? How they have taken away my performative skill of being in front of a class and impressing upon the students through both verbal and non-verbal communication, and we'll do that in another session. But that has changed considerably, and so obviously has power, right? And now we come, and this has obviously led us to now talk about how an understanding of the dynamism of power translates itself into politics. Now, what is politics? Is there anyone who'd like to tell me what is politics? What is essentially politics? And how we use this word in varied contexts to mean very many varied things.
Madam, politics is sharing of resources or allocation of resources. Who will exert influence in terms of usage of available or prospective resources? That is a broad definition, but it goes in different connotations. Whenever people think it's unfair, they think it's a politics. Whenever they are not listened to, they think it's a politics. So usage varies, but more or less it's a who will get more allocation out of limited resources.
Right, right. Thank you so much, Ashish. Does anyone want to add anything to this over here?
And can we say strategies? It is all about, and this is Anupama. Is it all
Yeah, yeah,
about
Anupama.
strategies, how to deal with a particular situation?
Okay, so politics, you have now put politics into the individual and you are using politics as a verb. So playing politics, using strategies.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's also increasing someone's well-being. It's also politics. If you look at the basic understanding was to increase the well-being of larger, of a group of people or masses. So that is how the term politics was used
So
for.
yeah, just as what Ashish is saying, allocation of resources essentially. Who gets what when?
Ma'am, politics is generally sometimes used as in the negative sense mostly because we call it as organizational politics, something which people cut across to reach their objectives. Cutthroat competition politics is generally seen as a negative term when we talk about in the organizational context.
Wonderful, Dr. Goswami. Thanks for also bringing that in because I'm going to also talk about that. So, politics is usually understood as something which is negative. So, politics as if
Ma'am,
has a
would
negative
I
connotation into
like
it.
to give my point, ma'am? See,
Hanji, Dr. Rani.
wherever, yeah, yes, ma'am. It's whatever means I'm work in a college, but when we talk about organizational politics, it is obviously negative only, ma'am, which I've come across also, and I'm experienced and I'm the victim of that one. So always, in according to me, organizational politics is a negative connotation only, ma'am.
Okay. All
It's a
right.
kind of a self-interest when people are working towards their self-interest.
Right, Swati. Fantastic. We have now a full bouquet of definitions of what politics could be. Something that when I was telling one of my students that this is the lecture I'm going to give to teachers who are teaching organizational behavior, most of them, and she just remarked and she said that, ma'am, you're not going to be able to talk anything. It is so simple. There is nothing to talk in this about. And look at this. We already have so many definitions of such a simple term like politics. Essentially, what is politics? Aristotle, as early as a philosopher like Aristotle, very, very close to the heels of saying that man is a social animal, Aristotle actually said that man is a political animal, which means that we are actually adept in understanding politics and also interacting politically with others. Now, we have established by now that there is power in human interaction, right? We have established that power plays, whether you observe it, whether you internalize it, whether you like it or dislike it. Power is present in human interaction. Pretty much so is politics. Now, where does politics really take birth? Where does politics really come from? Much like what Ashish said, politics comes from the fact that resources are limited and who gets what when is something that is determined by some sort of politics, right? Politics, as we also have understood, is probably understood as playing dirty. Organizational politics, I'm a victim of it. That is what we usually assume, that politics is a dirty word. Politics is something I don't want to engage in. Politics is something that we actually do not want to ascribe to, and oh, these people play politics and I don't. Now, let me sort of drop a big bomb here and say that politics is not necessarily a dirty word. Politics is actually usually understood as the general culture as well. It is also who gets what when, just as Ashish said. It is also when we say that we are understanding how things work here, right? How in this organization things fly. Who has more power here? Who can get things done? Of course, it's politics. Of course, some people are favorites. Of course, some people are on the right side of power. Of course, some people will get more than other people. And all of this is attributed to power. Now, does that mean that everyone who wants to apparently stay away from politics should always suffer? Should always understand themselves as being at the receiving end of political battles, or feel that, oh, I can't do this, and therefore I'm never going to get what these people get, and I should just quietly relegate myself to a corner and be happy with it. Is this what we mean? No, not at all. This is absolutely not what we mean. We mean that politics is inherent in human interaction. We mean that politics needs to be understood. And we mean that politics is not a bad word. It's not a dirty word. It is not something that you need not understand. So I'm going to broaden the definition. I'm going to broaden your horizon. And I'm going to tell you that politics is, number one, understanding what works and how, right? So every family, every relationship, every organization is going to have a organizational culture. What flies around here, how things work here, what goes here, what is taken here, what is misunderstood here, what is not taken here. So this is something loosely understood as spoken or unspoken written or unwritten organizational rules, right? ये बात कहीं नहीं लिखी. Apparently हम सब यही कहते हैं that we function as a democracy. I want to know from you how I should run this course, this class, this institution, this family. But when you try to tell me, I actually brush you off. And I say that, I know better than you and I will do this better. Have you all experienced this?
Is it something like an unsaid rules?
It is like unsaid rules, yes. Have you all experienced giving your opinion to someone who asked for it and then completely brushed you aside? Quickly in the chat box, tell me. In any context, in families, in your college, in organizations. So there is only Professor Patil who's gone through it.
Even in professional advices, when we work in a team and your senior manager or maybe your boss or your reporting vice president ask you certain suggestions to present it maybe to their superiors, but when you talk more about it in detail, then they just brush you off. Okay, that much is enough,
Yeah.
that's fine. Yeah, I know this. Yeah, what else? Something like that. Yes.
Right, absolutely. What is this? What is happening?
Ma'am,
That means, yeah, Priya.
ma'am,
He wants to take the credit.
what Swatija ma'am is saying, I just want to ask that can this be a survival technique for the superior when it's a threat for them, when they understand that their colleague is having more creative and innovative ideas to put forward? And if that is being showcased more, then your position might be, you as a superior, your position might be in a threat. So maybe for survival technique, just to survive, maybe you can term it politics. If I don't know, I'm not sure about that. It's a question.
So, rightly said that it can be a survival technique, but that is why a lot of places they don't appreciate, especially the old school of thought organizations. They don't appreciate the skip level engagement more. Though many new companies, e-commerce companies are coming up, so the flat organization, but initially it was not prescribed or suggested, because then okay, we'll get the feel of the market and then we'll go and present something else to the management. So there is something, okay, he will say, okay, this is my idea, but actually the team member does not get to know what has been proposed there.
Two very interesting points from your little interaction here. One is that, is playing politics something which is important for survival? The quick answer to this is, the obvious answer to this is that all of us, knowingly or unknowingly, engage in political interaction and are actually politically aware. We are intelligent human beings who pick up signals and know that this is going to be. A small child knows that I may, someone must be saying something to me, but does that mean I can actually do it? We know it. We know that there are certain people who are not worthy of what they are getting in an organization, but we do know that they will continue to get it because they have established themselves at a position of a certain kind of power. They have made the politics work for them, right? The quick answer to this is, of course, yes, it is a survival technique. The second thing that Swati brings up is very interesting, is about lateral organization. I'm also going to leave you with this interesting research question, and I want you to sometime come up and tell me what you think about it. Are lateral organizations really lateral in terms of politics and power? Is everyone really, honestly, looking at it from an interactive psychological paradigm, really equal? Right? When we say flat organizations, Does that really mean all power is equally shared? Does
It is
that
not.
mean that all information is equally shared? Does that mean that everyone is really equal at all times?
I
And
think that
professors of organizational behavior should actually question and understand this, that where is the power in a flat organization? Yeah, so apparently there is no structure, there is no hierarchy. And we are saying that the organization is actually a flat organization. So my question to all of you professors, to all of you wonderfully accomplished teachers is our flat organization truly flat? And when we are talking about politics and power, this becomes a truly, truly interesting debate, right? And we are going to think about this. And we don't have to get the answer right now, also because we cannot. But I want you to develop on this question and do tell me at some point that are flat organizations really flat? Right? Are all siblings in the house really equal? Are mom and dad same? Do they always have the same power? We have
No,
to
ma'am.
think about it.
No,
And
ma'am.
we have to, and no is not the response that I'm looking for. I'm looking for you to tell me how the web of politics and power is established and operates in these structureless structures, in these hierarchy-less hierarchies. And that would be interesting. No is not a researcher's answer. The researcher's answer has to be complex and complicated and full of data, and tell me that how, where, what, when will these politics impact?
Ma'am, hello.
I can hear you.
Ma'am, good afternoon once again. Your question is flat organization is really flat. So, in my opinion, flat organization is not flat. The reason being, sometimes it's create a informal communication system. See, lots of time, or in many times, we get lots of information from the informal communication pattern, and it happen only through with the help of politics only. If politics is not there, we can't get any information from the system.
Very important. Very important. Now, I am actually enjoying this lecture very much by now, because now we are already over and done with everything that is written in the books. Now we have come to an experiential understanding of the fact that there is grapevine, there is
Ma'am,
rumor, and
ma'am, just
grapevines and rumor actually works at a much, much more advanced political level than obvious politics themselves.
Hello,
Hanji Himlata ji.
ma'am. What I feel like, even if when the organizations are flat, sometimes the power gets structured around maybe the most popular people or those who are actually powerful, not because of position. So the power get concentrated around those points, and
Exactly.
though
And
it
it
should be.
depends on who in that organization or what in that organization is valued at what time. Sometimes it will be okay who has connections with the ministry. Sometimes it becomes who is able to throw the best parties. Sometimes it becomes as random as who has maximum friends. And sometimes it's the exact opposite. Who has the least number of friends becomes the most powerful person in an organization, because he is not going to side with anyone apparently in a time of discontent and feud. So there is a lot of politics that is played in a apolitical system, or in a flat organization that prides itself in being apparently devoid of power structures. But mind you, you just have to look a little closely. You just have to get your binoculars on into human interaction. And you see that there is a lot of power play, there is a lot of politics, and there is a lot of dynamism happening inside of these structures and organizations. Now, I'm going to actually help you and tell you certain things that can actually work towards building an organization that may have a lot of power in politics, because we have to agree that it is there. It is actually to the disadvantage of building an organization if we keep disagreeing to the idea of power in politics. Now, once we've established the fact that organizations have power structures and people are politically aware in an organization, and people are going to, because resources are to be divided, information is to be shared, people want and are working towards some sort of personal goals and benefit, we really need to be careful into how we are structuring dialogue in an organization, interaction in an organization, such that we don't deny the presence of politics or deny the presence of power, but we make power and politics be used to the benefit of both every individual in the organization and the organization itself. Right? So, what are some things that you imagine that we can do to actually make politics and power play a positive contributing role in organizations? Are there some strategies? Is there something that we can bring on the table?
Ma'am, may I?
Yes, Priya.
Ma'am, I wanted to say that sometimes when it is power and politics that you're talking about, and if you talk about designing a strategy, referral recruitment policy, what an organization follows. So the referral recruitment policy in an organization, which we don't get to see much in, educational industry, but in banking industry, they do follow that. So do you feel that, in an organization, when you have referral recruitment policy, sometimes groupism leads to certain kind of, negative situation, because here already the existing employees have this perception that this person has been recruited through the director or through the higher authority, so because of that, maybe a political discrepancy or, negative situation is built up, and the outcome, the strategy that you want to, what you're asking, that what kind of strategy we can come up with, so that will completely depend on the organizational culture, if I'm not wrong. Do you, you know I don't know, like that's my opinion. I don't know what would.
You are right. Of course, when we are going to build any strategy, we are going to study that particular organizational very thoroughly and very, very carefully. And that goes without saying that we are actually going to understand the absolute cultural nuances of that particular organization. How are the written rules being actually followed, not followed? And what are the unwritten rules here that are intrinsically followed by everyone? Who is powerful? Who gets the power? Who does not get the power? And like you are saying, the power comes from various places. Who recruits whom? Who has lunch with whom? Who chats up with whom? How are the emails CC'd? Who is kind of skipped out of the CCing of the email? Who is asked for an opinion before CCing the email? All of this is a play of power. Of course, gossip and rumor is something that has a lot of power. It can actually destroy people's ability to concentrate, function, and work in organization. And we are trying to develop and we are trying to gain an understanding of what is it that organizations can do to actually have power, politics, gossip work for the organization. Are there
So
any ideas
maybe,
there?
so we can also say that in case if any change has to be done in the organization, if you have to look at the positive side of this organizational politics, if there is a change which is required, if we have to shift one person from this team to put it in another team, and maybe we know that that person is capable of doing X job better than what he or she is doing right now, and then we also have to see, okay, this is going to help the change which we are going to bring in an organization level. Is it also a positive side of politics, organization politics?
That's a good strategy, perhaps.
Okay, because we are working towards one goal. Yes, we can, like you said, everything cannot be shared. All the information or unsaid rules we can't really, disclose. But we have to really strategize in such a way without telling people, okay, you have been moved to this team, you have been moved to the other department, and you have to, from say next month, you have to do this without their views, or without asking their views or consent. Okay, they have been transferred, something like that.
Right. So you are almost telling me that movements should happen with complete transparency.
Maybe yes, because
Yeah. So I think if we are going to strategize, then the first bit that we need to understand is there has to be some channels of communication which have to be always open and available. Yeah. So for example, when we are doing work allocation or resource allocation, it is something that has to be put out on the table. So there has to be some bit of transparency, even if transparency means after the allocation is done.
so because
Right?
there may be favorites. Okay, people wants to pick
Of
up their
course,
favorites.
of course.
Yeah.
So we have to put it on the table that this is what has gone to this person because of this, right? So some transparency in organization helps. The second is reducing ambiguity. As soon as there is I don't know what happened, we know that there is more politics required than necessary. I don't know what happened. I don't know why this is happening. I don't know why we are not getting what our due is. Right? So, reduction of ambiguity. The third, I think this intermingling between colleagues and activities and all of that is actually essentially a part of a larger goal. Can you tell me what this is? I mean, we don't want all the people in the organization to suddenly become friends. That's not what the goal is. What is the goal in terms of power and politics?
Yes, ma'am. May I?
Yeah, sure.
To get the objective to be done in an effective and efficient manner. That's why people are, very try to be very friendly, although they are not friendly. So that the work can be done on time.
There are a lot of competition within the teams as well. In organizations, if we see which team is performing what task and how well they are performing, so there is an internal competition as well. So I think there also organizational politics plays a very vital role.
And competition is not bad. We know that competition is not bad. It
Exactly.
helps the organization work towards its goals. It helps the people work better. Some people work better with competition. Some people may actually feel too stressed. But I was asking that what is the goal behind doing all of these organizational activities and workshops and picnics? Why do we do that?
Relationship building, maybe.
You are
Help
getting closer, but why do we need to build these relationships?
for a positive work environment, because always you cannot just think about someone else is trying to.
Why do we need a positive work environment?
For more of
To reduce
engagement.
the stress.
Why do we no? Why,
Ma'am,
why would
And
you
because we are
want people to
social
be
animals.
friends?
ma'am, we join
No.
politics. Yes, ma'am, we join politics to satisfy our own objectives.
That's
If
not
I,
the question right now. The question is, why are we letting people socially interact with each other through whatever games, team building, picnic, whatever different organizations
Analyze
have?
them,
Maybe
and their
creativity and
capabilities.
innovations, maybe.
Analyze them to
No.
analyze.
Because we need team to, I mean, we cannot do it alone, and we need team to go ahead with our work, and teams can work properly with each other only if they gel with each other better.
I'm asking you, what is the meta idea behind this? You are all giving me
Basically,
right responses.
so
But I
basically,
want to know the meta idea.
organization wants to give that feeling to the employees that they have been taken care, they have been given some kind of freedom, some kind of organization is empathizing with them at their level. So
you're getting closer.
Ownership.
Professor, yeah. So, Professor, I feel that it's a transactional relationship which comes out of it. That because you're working for the well-being of the organization, the organization is also taking care of you. It's so I see that the meta idea is the transactional. It's transactional in nature.
I really do think that all of you should interact with psychologists much more often. So, the real reason here is that actually an organization essentially is a structured set of deliverables and instructions, right? We all know that we go to work to work. We work, we accomplish a goal, we get money for that or whatever benefit that accrues on us, and we come back. All of these other things are essentially done to keep the humane part of an organization alive. The fact that organization is built up of human beings and the organization itself is essentially a humane idea and not a factory made idea and not an inhumane device where human beings are nothing but machinery to reach to one goal and another. It is actually, and when we establish this humane part of the organization, we realize that all of these humane qualities that we are striving to move towards get enhanced. Productivity, creativity, all of these are parts of an individual's arena, an individual's motivation, right? You cannot get all of these qualities, for example, from a machine or from a computer or from a automated process. These things will come when there will be humane interaction in an organization. And essentially, we bring up all of these because we want to reiterate that we are working with human beings. We understand that we are humane. We understand that there are needs of nurturance, socialization, sensitization, creativity, stress management, enhancing creativity. All of these are what? These are actually attributes of human capabilities and human interaction. So if we take out human from the entire equation, then we don't need to do all of this. It is because we are trying to reiterate that we are human beings. And because we are human beings, there is relationships. Because there are relationships, there is power dynamics. Because there are power dynamics, there is politics. Right? Do we get that? Do we get how all of this is intercorrelated, intermingled, and also impacting one another? Right? Let me tell you what are possibly certain skills that could be required to actually play this political game, which is not necessarily always dirty. Right? So the skills, that the human skills, number one is empathy. Empathy matlab? Does anyone know what empathy means?
Yes, ma'am.
Having the feeling, having the feeling, understand the person, the way he thinks, the way he behaves, keeping the shoes of the other. Oneself in the shoes of the other.
Because you are not count. The last little bit that I want to put in around power and politics, and now we know negotiations and skill. Add to all this mix some things that we get from being human is what is called morality. Add to this mix some bit of morality and moral functioning. So, is politics by itself bad? No. Is power bad? No. Right? Is there a theory to support what is being said? Well, all of it together, I haven't come across a theory, Sumit, but all of these are theories. There are people, and all of these are refereed, researched work. And I could give you references of all of these spaces, but together, to put it together is also something which I like doing for my lectures, because there are some things which are not necessarily spoken with certain others in text. So, for example, when people speak of politics, they don't necessarily speak it in connection with human relationships. And when people speak of politics and power, they quite conveniently forget the entire narrative and discourse of morality. And I do think that we need to bring it together. So, putting it together is really what I have done. But yes, for most of these, there is theoretical structure, and I think textual. I think it will also be in books. I have largely referred to some old classic texts in organizational behavior, also on human behavior and organizations, also on classical readings that have been a part of my own understanding of psychology and human behavior. So, yeah, these are coming from researched sources, but not necessarily all put in together. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Then what is the validity? That's a very good point. What is the validity? Now, when we are saying that we are using certain structures into a context together, I'm also urging you to expand knowledge and validity. If I'm going to exactly give you what is, suppose, already all put together, then we are not expanding knowledge. You should also be left with certain things to question, debate, analyze. And I think as teachers, we should open knowledge sharing in a way which is also building a culture of debate and development of knowledge further. So that is what also I'm constantly endeavoring to contribute to developing structures and knowledge, and therefore putting certain ideas together so that we can all probably study. It could, of course, it could lead to a hermeneutic bias. And therefore, we have research to fall back on. And therefore, we have our own trainings to fall back on.
Right, ma'am. Thank you.
Right. So, where were we? This was an interesting interjection. We were on morality. Now, add to all of this mix morality. Now, Mahabharat, which is an interesting text, and there have been a lot of interpretations. So, Badrinath Chaturvedi actually writes of dharma, and dharma being, for the first time, looked at in Mahabharat as something which is open to interpretation. So, dharma then no longer is something which is cast in stone, much like our theories. They are not cast in stone. So, something which earlier was looked at as something which was cast in stone, something that everyone had to follow, Mahabharat became a place, and Mahabharat became a narrative where dharma was now being interpreted and reinterpreted. Right? Morality is actually something much closer to that context, where there are certain absolutes. There are certain absolutes. So there can be individually differing absolutes. There can be organizationally differing absolutes. And there can also be absolutes which are very particular to certain times and dimension. So there is a Desh Kal Patra which is going to intersect our sense of morality. What is understood and deemed to be correct at a given time, place, and by a particular karta, by a particular person. Something that person A does may be deemed correct in a particular time and age, and the same may not be understood as entirely correct at another time. When we start talking about morality within the mix of politics and power, we actually open a very, very complex, a very, very interesting structure of how then human beings are going to operate in the giving domains of politics and power while maintaining a constant thread of morality, while maintaining a certain commitment to humanity. And this has been interpreted and reinterpreted at various points in human evolution as understood by giving actually the context of dharma, by giving the context of culture, by giving the context of organizational structure and belief system, right? How dirty can politics get is actually how low or how much can the twine of morality be construed, twisted, and played with, right? So one has to constantly be aware that we have within the mix of politics and power a certain kind of absolute necessity of politics and power existing, which can also be seen evolutionarily, which can also be seen right from, in fact, biology and Darwin understanding human emotion and adaptation. So we know that that twine exists. We know that this needs to exist. We know that there is politics and power. We know now that politics and power is an essential component of human interaction. When we are talking about human interaction, we are saying that there exists human beings and therefore human interaction. Because there exists human interaction and because there exist human beings, there needs to be a certain humane part in this interaction. This humane part is developed through all these other humanity centric activities and constructs. And this will have a strain or should have a strain to it, which is essentially a strain of dharma, a strain of moral consciousness in organizations. So I actually leave you to think that is politics placed on the bedrock of power with the base of moral consciousness, then something which is bad and dirty? Probably not. It is something that needs to be understood in context and perhaps needs to be interpreted and needs to be broken down to say that what is it that forms the culture of a particular interaction to then be perceived by most individuals in that organization as fair, just, and non ambiguous, right? I am going to now see the chat box, which is propping up to show me some very interesting questions. Once I engage with those questions, I will try and open up the floor. Okay. Politics and power, this got answered. How far is it right to include mythology in discourse, which is either positivist or constructive or interpretist? Well, that is an example. It's like a case study. It is not mythology being included at all. If all is said is not backed by theoretical background or one paper, then what is the validity? I think I've answered this. Of course, it is hermeneutic bias. Of course, there is. Should politics and power be avoided or attended? What if I'm not comfortable with these? Can I still be at peace? I think I'm so glad, Dr. Arora, that you finally come to this question. From all the this actually very justly, in fact, summarizes my aim for this lecture. That should politics and power be avoided? My understanding and my request is that we cannot, and we cannot actually turn a blind eye to something that is really always there. But when I say that I'm not comfortable with these, that means that I am looking at only the destructive potential. I'm only looking at the discomfort that these may cause. I am perhaps unable to look at and engage with the positive potential that power can bring, the inherent humaneness in politics. And I think once I'm able to deal with that, I will slowly and gradually perhaps become attuned to interpreting politics and power as being more empathetic, more humane, and perhaps much more seeped essentially into human interaction than that necessarily needs to be avoided. Thank you so much for your questions, Mr. Dr. Arora. I'm assuming you're a doctor and perhaps also a professor. Thank you so much for your questions. They have really lent some very important insights into the session. I hope this does answer your last very interesting, very personal, insightful question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open the floor for debate, discussion, questions, and I by no means, and I'm saying that I am an expert on all of this. This is actually, as I believe, knowledge is constructivist. We are constructing knowledge here together. What I entered this lecture believing may not be the same as what I exit this lecture with. So I'm very happy to debate. There is absolutely not going to be in this hermeneutic exercise me versus you. It is going to be us together creating a structure of knowledge as we want to look at it. And perhaps we have not come to answers. Perhaps we have come to more questions at the end of it. And there is no better academic engagement than coming to more questions at the end of it.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good
afternoon, ma'am. Can you hear me?
मेरे को नाम बताइए. I can't really spot.
Ma'am, this is Inakshi here.
Yes, Inakshi.
Okay. Ma'am, this deep-rooted negative connotation with politics, is it because people have always justified certain undesirable behaviors or maybe even tactful behavior to politics, maybe an abstract scapegoat? You're saying, okay, this happened because it's politics, or I'm doing it because it's politics.
Yes. Inakshi, it actually lends us to wonder that how narrative around a certain world and word is built, right? So sometimes we constantly use a certain kind of color to paint a certain kind of narrative around a particular discourse. We do not engage with it entirely, and politics usually is always understood, and mostly so, as something which is done to explain my negative.
Right.
Something that I didn't want to do, but I had to do because there's so much politics.
So it becomes almost like an abstract, like maybe it doesn't exist, but from an individual level, I just blamed politics for it. Maybe it's there or maybe it's not there. Could it be something like that? Or do we need to...
I'm sorry, I can't hear you very clearly. You said that something is there or not there?
Okay, so now let's take an individual. he or she justifies their undesirable behaviors. Oh, this is politics, this is how it happens. So
नहीं
should
मुझे
I
सुनाई
should
नहीं दे रहा आप
okay
सबको सुनाई दे रहा है बहुत
Yes,
clear
ma'am, it's
नहीं है
audible. Ma'am, if you
okay
could just increase the volume of your laptop, maybe it would help.
I can hear you very well.
ma'am, can you hear me
Okay.
now?
Yes, perfect.
My nose is almost touching my screen now, so please.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So ma'am, like you said, so if there is a justification by one individual that I did this or she did this because it's politics, so should one go beyond that one individual, or is it just that you take it as a norm that okay, this is politics and this is how it happens?
Oh, not at all. Question everything.
Okay.
And no. If there is this one individual's view that you are subscribing to, whoever that
Right.
individual may be, or whoever the theorist, or whoever that extremely intelligent person might be, I think this one individual view is something that I'm constantly very uncomfortable with.
Okay.
So I think get lots of individuals. And even if we are studying the politics of one particular organization, suppose
Right.
अगर हम कहते हैं कि यहाँ पे बड़ी dirty politics है,
That's exactly my point actually. So
right?
let's
So
talk of
even
not
if we are
individual,
saying
one
that
who.
कि एक organization है, यहाँ पे बहुत dirty politics है,
Right.
यहाँ पे भी कुछ लोग होंगे जरूर जिनका व्यू पॉइंट इस एक इंडिविजुअल से डिफरेंट होगा.
Right.
पॉलिटिक्स हमेशा कुछ लोगों के हित में होती ही होती है. There are some people who are getting benefited. Sometimes trying to look at their benefit that they are accruing from this politics and then look at the other person's view and then try to see that how there can be humane interaction and intervention so that there is power being used correctly essentially and not just for only certain people's gains.
Now, from an organizational perspective, ma'am, sometimes when sensitive information is involved, now gathering this information is not easy. So how does one go about it then?
Gathering which information?
Ma'am, whether that particular individual who is, playing politics and saying, this is how it is done, this is how the environment is, this is how the culture is. So how does one go about that? If that
Oh,
that
Acha, this
information
is
can
so.
be.
I think this is a fairly simple exercise. So if someone is saying that this is how it is done, it's a good idea to talk to at least 10 more people. Does everyone say this is how it is done?
Ma'am, very sensitive information. How do I go ask 10 more people?
No, you don't need to go and ask. Remember, there are lots of ways of communication.
Right. Okay.
You don't need to go and ask, but you need to sometimes just observe. You need to sometimes just see how other people are doing the same thing. I also don't know the context in which you're asking this, but even however sensitive the information is, this one person rule never applies to me, at least.
Right.
Personally, I would say that there is cultures are not made by one people.
Right.
It is, and cultures are neither are they adhered to by one person. There are always more than one person involved in that
Right.
bit. Politics is more at the top level. Your perspective on this? Politics is more at the top level now. Resources are more scarce at the top level, and therefore there is a apparent negotiation, renegotiation fight in the who gets what when. So politics तो हर जगह होती है. कहाँ दिखती ज्यादा है उस बात पर. How can I change my worldview where power and politics is discriminatory and not facilitative? Actually, we've been taught that this is our default position, that politics is dirty, politics is discriminative, power is terrible, it is essentially enjoyed by only those who are in power, etc. But we have also, I think, the other narrative somewhere lurking, which we need to pick up and look at. There is also something as being the king being the most powerless person, because he must sort of facilitate the growth of everyone in the kingdom, right? So there are also these alternate narratives which exist and which we need to engage with. And we also need to see how politics and power is actually a much, much more dynamic concept than the world of politics and power would like to have us believe. Right, we can take a couple of more questions and then I think everyone should be sufficiently tired to wind up. Are there any other questions, comments?
Ma'am, can I ask another question, please?
Of course.
Okay. Now, how we perceive politics? Like, okay, I am a person. Somebody, got some favors or is the favorite of somebody. I see it as politics. Oh my God!
Okay.
I through these skill sets that you told me about empathy and this. So I apply those and I somehow come in that position as well. Like I also get favored and I get favoritism and all that. Would I say that, okay, I played politics and I got here?
अच्छा, दो चीजें हमेशा याद रखो ना.
Right.
Even if you played politics and got here, you're not going to stay here for long.
Ma'am, okay.
Right? एक ये चीज हमेशा याद रखो.
Right.
दूसरा, you understood what needs to be done in this situation and you did it and perhaps got what you wanted. But now how you are going to use this acquired power, position or benefit that you are getting is what is going to determine how you are using what you have been bestowed with. So is that coming in your domain of humanity, humane behavior, activity,
Understood.
morality?
Okay.
So don't lose perspective of these two things. एंड ये तो कभी मत भूलना कि अभी मिल गया इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि सब हमेशा रहेगा. अभी
So that's
3
how
घंटे बाद
I
किसी और को
made
मिल
the
जाएगा.
negative connotation with politics when I kind of use my power and politics per se for doing something which is more on humane ground lines and things like that.
Correct.
Okay.
So politics is not necessarily always inhumane, horrible, dirty. It sometimes is required to get the resources that are needed for a particular task to be accomplished.
And sometimes the way people perceive who don't have it also affects how you perform and operate.
Yeah, true.
So how does one? Okay, so it's like a cyclical process. I will also be in that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's all dynamic.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Ma'am?
Yeah, Priya.
Ma'am, I don't know, as a researcher, like I was thinking, can this topic be studied with a definition of politics and it has been perceived differently by both the genders? From male perspective, it is a different thing, and from the female perspective, it is a different thing. Because
you are right.
Mostly, I have seen that men are literally not bothered about it, and like that is.
Well, that's not true. I wouldn't say men. I mean, you need to operationalize your study much better. But if your question is that are there gender differences in the perception and the expression of power and politics, the answer is yes. There are gender differences. Now, what are those gender differences? I absolutely would not like to comment on that without good data supporting this.
Right.
Because it is going to depend on context, it is going to depend deshkal patra, it is going to depend on all of that.
Okay.
I cannot say that whether women will typically behave like this. It is not necessarily
but maybe the reaction, I'm talking about the way a woman would react to a particular situation would be very much different when it comes to a man.
Of course.
Yeah, and maybe
much like how individuals react differently, but depends on what kind of a woman, what context, what situation.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So of course, if your question is that, is there a gender difference in the way politics and power is perceived, acted, and internalized? The answer is yes. How, what, when? Please find out.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Are there any other questions?
Ma'am, there's one question in the chat box.
There is. 1 second. Let me just go down. What moderates or mediates power and politics? Dr. Arora, are you trying to ask that what is the national culture of power and politics currently?
No, ma'am. I'm just trying to figure out, are there any other variables on which power and politics and acceptance of power and politics and acceptance of the meaning of power and politics as explained by you earlier depends? Are there any other variables? Means, can we look at power and politics from some other angle, some other variables?
Oh, of course. Of course. Many other angles. I am situating power and politics in human interaction and organization. Of course, you can look at power and politics in many other variables. A biologist will look at it very differently. A political theorist will look at it very differently. And I'm sure a mathematician will look at power and politics very differently. I am situating power and politics, as I right in the beginning of my lecture said, that I'm situating it in organizations and consequently situating it in human interaction. That is the perspective from which I'm talking. And of course, my leaning of knowledge is psychology. So, yeah, that's right. I am talking about it only from one perspective.
Right, ma'am. Thank you.
Why do people not take up retirement at the right age? How do you think it affects the younger generation in the organization? Explain me the question, please, and its relationship to power and politics.
Ma'am, I'm just, this is Vidya, ma'am. I'm just trying to know if it is the influence of power that is not letting them to get away from their job or the organization.
नहीं थोड़ा सा जोर से बोलो विद्या please.
Ma'am, I don't get you.
Vidya, I could not hear the last bit. Your voice trailed in the end. Can you please ask me the question again?
Ma'am, we have many senior citizens working, like continuing to work in the organizations even after their age of retirement.
Okay.
Like, is it the want of power that they don't want to get out of the institute or an organization because they are being
Actually,
given
there are
additional...
lots of variables impacting this now, Vidya. In fact, I was reading a interesting research proposal by one central government team, which says that the retirement age should now be increased to 70 because people are well productive up till that age. There is also medical advancement. There is all of that happening, right? That is influencing all of this. But if there is a retirement age, then organizational policy also needs to be looked into. That what is the percentage of people who you are going to continue to employ after retirement, and what are the reasons? That are there people who do not have those kind of skills anymore? Is there a certain kind of expert power that is continued to be required by the organization that has not developed? But of course, it does impact the organization in toto, not just the younger generation, but also how people are approaching towards their retirement age. It will also impact them. If there is a general organization where the general culture is that no one really retires, everyone keeps working well beyond retirement, then I will never look at the retirement age as a cutoff period at all, right? I will keep thinking that I can work till whenever I want. It changes not just the dynamic of the interaction of the younger lot, but also the middle and the senior lot in terms of age here, and the organizational culture and what the organization has to offer. It changes everything.
Thank you.
Okay, we shall take one last question. People who derive their power from positions seem to be, well, you are right. I couldn't agree more. Someone had mentioned somewhere power from fame. There was somebody who had mentioned that. That's true. That is a kind of power, a kind of referent power, where people gain power not because they're an expert, but just because they are well known. So just because you're famous, you have a certain kind of power as well. In fact, my PhD is on fame and studying the socio-cultural dynamics and the socio-historic dynamics of the same. So yes, there is power to that. I think I forgot to sort of comment on that earlier. And again, much like everything else, fame is also something which is very dynamic if it is based only on well-knownness, if it is not based on anything which is more durable as a construct. Right. Vardha, shall we close?
Definitely, ma'am. As you say, although I think the participants still would like to continue interacting with you. I was still not audible.
Now you are.
Okay. So I was saying that, as you say, I believe that there are participants who will still like to continue interacting with you. I can see a few cameras turning on and a few people who are still unmuting themselves. So, as you suggest.
All right. If there are people who want to particularly ask any pressing questions, we are happy to take one.
Ma'am,
or
I
two.
won't ask a question. I'll just tell something, share something.
Yes.
Ma'am, I am doing my PhD from IIM Calcutta, and ma'am, your name seemed very familiar. And then when I checked your Google Scholar, I found a paper that we discussed in class. So we actually discussed one of your paper, that images of self in psychological thought. So I just
Thank you for
wanted.
reading that paper. That paper actually has some 12 years of work in it.
Wow.
It was an amazing paper, and like
Thank you
I
so
had a
much.
discussion with Amit Mansar, like who is who also is interested in psychological research. So I just wanted to share that.
I'm so pleased. Nothing pleases an academic and a researcher more than the fact that the paper is read by someone. Thank you.
I also
Thank you, ma'am.
just to add to what Anindya has said, that I'm pursuing an executive program from IIM Kolkata, and again we were talking about one of the concepts that you discussed, and a paper of yours has been given to us as reading in our course on OB. So I was just wondering, and then I got an opportunity to hear you today. And let me tell you, I think in the last 2 days, this is one of the best sessions that I've attended, where I have been actually focused and active and participated more so. And how beautifully you narrated. I mean, the thing that I take away from this session is the power of a facilitator and the power of narration. The way you narrated all these very difficult concepts of power and politics, and I mean, my takeaway has, and today definitely there's a value add from your session. So thank you so much for sparing your time, and this was indeed a wonderful session.
Thank you so much. Dr. Trehan has made my day. Thank you. I'm so scared of these online lectures because I feel nobody really listens and we have all just sort of logged in and slept off. But thank you so much for listening and commenting at the end of it.
Ma'am, I'm not from academics per se, but from the corporate, or rather than government office. But let me tell you, the kind of interpretation and meaning you have given to power is an eye-opening for a person like me who is in government service. Thank you very much.
Thank you
God
so
bless.
much, Dr. Yadav. Thank you for listening.
Ma'am, appreciations are also flowing in the chat box for you. So thank you so much, Dr. Surbhika, for such a thought-provoking and interesting session. You gave a lot of food for thought for all of our participants, and we are really grateful to you for lending your valuable time and answering all queries. And let me tell all the participants, you'll be happy to hear that we have one more session with Dr. Surbhika on 8th of July. So we'll meet, see, and
And in
interact with
fact, for that session, we are pretty much going to build on this one. It is about communication. So we are going to build on this one. I'm going to approach it a little differently though, but we are going to build on this one. In the meantime, I am also in the chat box. Also, you can, I'm sure you are much more tech savvy than I am, but I'm going to leave you with my email address just in case someone wants to write in and tell me anything that I must know or send me a paper that I must read. I will be very happy to learn more, because really here, honestly, we should develop as academics and practice that development than sort of just be interested in telling you what I think. So I'm also very interested in hearing back from you. Thank you